But with Shinji, maybe it's cope. Maybe what I'm about to tell you is cope. Former captain of the 5th Division of the Gotei 13. At the time, he served under Sosuke Aizen as his vice captain, but as a result of Sosuke's schemes, he fled to the present world. Together with Hiyori and others who had also fled, he calls himself the Masked Army. Shinji Hirako. Shinji is a character who takes the initiative by reading each other's minds in close combat. This is like the 2nd or 3rd time they've said something about mind reading, so that's interesting. With his unique techniques that can be switched between unblockable and counter, he forces his opponent to make choices in various situations and seizes the pace. However, be careful that if you get too far away, his unique techniques will miss and leave you exposed. And with Shinji, the way that his abilities work, I may do things a little bit out of order once we dive a little bit deeper into his kit. At first glance, I was a little disappointed with what they showed us, but he's got a little bit more going on with him than I originally thought. He is a 3-star ease of use character. He is extremely balanced with his technique, his defense, his reach, and his speed all being the same level, pretty much average, maybe a little bit above average, and then his attack being his highest stat at 1 before maxed out. So he is a very balanced character who prefers to be on the offensive just by looking at his stats. I normally go in the order of what they show us in the trailer when talking about abilities, but what I want to actually do is talk about his spiritual pressure technique 2 first, and that is reverse. In the trailer, it's called Sakanade, which is the name of his Zanpakuto, if I'm not mistaken, and everything that he does kind of centers around this ability. It is a technique with a breaker attribute, which means it's unblockable, that releases the reverse brush and sweeps forward. The reverse brush is his Zanpakuto, so he's releasing his Zanpakuto, and they're calling it reverse brush. The range is narrow, but it is unblockable, and if it hits, it will follow up with a continuous attack. After hitting, it will be strengthened by the reverse brush. Now, this verbiage is very, very weird, but it is very, very straightforward when you understand what they're trying to say. If this attack hits, he'll activate his Shikai. So pretty much he'll take his Zanpakuto into the mode that we all know and love, where he's, got the little ring around it, he's spinning it around his finger, and that's what will enhance some other abilities that he has. So if we look throughout the trailer, and I'll point this out as we go through his other moves, we see different points where his Zanpakuto is in its base form, and then it's in his Shikai form as well, its released form. So I'm thinking that based off of his spiritual pressure technique 2 landing is how it'll actually activate and go into the form that we all know and love. In the trailer, before he uses his spiritual pressure technique 2, his Shikai is already out. So I'm assuming that this is taking place at a point where he's already used this ability and they're just using it again. The actual spiritual pressure technique itself is very interesting because it's essentially just a very short range unblockable hit, and if it does hit, you get multiple hits afterwards. So looking here on hit, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, and that 4th hit looks like its final hit of the actual move. So once this lands and your Shikai is out, you go into the reverse brush or the Sakanade state, and pretty much all that means is once this move hits, you will have access to more things. It kind of changes the way that his kit plays around his unique skill as well. Speaking of his unique skill, it actually has 2 different variants. The first one is It's Funny. He walks forward while spinning his Zanpakuto in his hand, and if he receives an attack other than a knockdown attack during that time, he will counter with a slash. However, if he doesn't receive an attack, he will be left wide open. If we look at the trailer, we can see that when he's using this move, he's not spinning his Zanpakuto in his hand, but he does have his arms out, kind of taunting you. Why would you hit him? If you see him just walking towards you like this, why would you assume that he's open? But maybe it's so smooth that you get carried away and you're just like, oh, he's not doing anything, let me swing. I don't know. It seems like it's a very noob-centered move. Like, this is something that you do to catch noobs off guard, but we do see that his Zanpakuto is literally not released when he uses this ability. That's because it's not activated from his second spiritual pressure technique. But if you do activate it from his second spiritual pressure technique, it changes the way the unique skill works, and you have access to the second version of it, which is called That's Not It. Can be activated by forward input plus unique technique while in the strengthened state by Gyakufu, which is the strengthened state that you get from releasing his Zanpakuto. Walk forward while spinning your Zanpakuto in your hand and slash upward in front of you, a technique with a breaking hand attribute. I'm assuming the breaking hand attribute means it's unblockable. If the technique is successful, you will move behind the opponent and perform a follow-up attack. So pretty much if your Shikai is out after you use your spiritual pressure technique to successfully, you will have access to That's Not It, which changes his unique skill from being counter-based to being 100% attack-based, because you can activate the attack portion regardless if you get hit or not. As a matter of fact, if you get hit, I'm assuming that it won't even activate, but if they're that close to you, why wouldn't you just pop this move? If we look closely, he's got the actual like Shikai version of it out. My question is though, how good is this move going to be against people that are actually familiar with Shinji's kit? Because in my opinion, based off how this works, all you have to do is just kind of back up. You see him walking towards you, you just back up, and if you have a character that has like a projectile type of move, like any zoning capabilities whatsoever, you would just throw this out at them. But then again, what if he's in his counter state, he just teleports right behind you? There's a lot going on here that I feel like we won't be able to tell just from the minute of trial gameplay that we got in this trailer, because I'm starting to see some of his utility. I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little disappointed after we got that first trailer, but the more I'm reading this, the more I'm realizing, okay, what they mean by mind games is the 50-50 mix-ups that he has with his unique skill after his Shikai is out. That's what I'm assuming. And then that follow-up attack after you move behind your opponent, I'm wondering how free of a combo that this gives you. If it's just the one follow-up attack, or if this follow-up attack has enough hit stun on it for you to actually continue a combo. Because if you can continue a full combo after the follow-up attack, this move is actually really, really nasty. Then his controversial spiritual pressure technique 1. It's your turn. Summons Hiyori to attack the opponent repeatedly. If Hiyori comes into contact with any attack detection, she will retreat. Attack detection to me sounds like if the opponent hits her, she'll go away. But this is very, very interesting because in the trailer, we literally see her going away on her own without Ichigo doing any sort of attack. We also see that he does not have his Shikai out when he's using this move as well. He's just in his like base, non-enhanced Sakanade state. So I'm wondering if that plays a role in the way that this move functions as well. Like say the enhanced Sakanade state makes her stay out longer. I don't know. The verbiage doesn't say that she's only out for a certain amount of time. It says she's out until you hit her, but we can clearly see her going away of her own accord. So maybe when you have your base Zanpakuto, she comes out for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of hits and then she leaves. Or maybe what they mean by like attack detection is like if Shinji also presses a button, she goes away. So if she gets hit or if Shinji presses a button, she'll go away. But this is a little controversial because we literally see her come out mid combo string during his awakening while he's still throwing out attacks. So the only other thing that I can think is that they're not telling us that the functionality of Hiyori changes when Shinji has his Shikai out versus when it's just his base Zanpakuto. That's the only thing that I can tell because there's literally no indicator here that either Ichigo is about to press a button, and that's what she realized. There's no indicator that she got hit, and there's barely an indicator that Shinji pressed a button afterwards. He kind of just like went through the full animation of his spiritual pressure technique. I also think that he will be mobile during this, and it's not just going to be him standing there rubbing his head as well, because if he's just sitting there immobile for 5 seconds, what's stopping the opponent from just flash stepping right behind you and hitting you. So I'm interested to see how this will work out over the course of a long battle, and if there is any difference in this move and its efficacy with his Shikai being out versus his base Zanpakuto just being out. Speaking of his awakening, it is hollowification. By becoming hollow, its abilities are strengthened. There are no major changes to its actions, but the rewards for winning a guess are greater, making it easier to put pressure on the opponent. So this literally tells us that the way his moves work don't change after he hollowifies, but he gets a greater benefit for that mind game that he plays with his mix-ups and the abilities that have the mix-ups. I'm wondering if what they mean is his base combo strings are enhanced or they do more damage, or if they're literally saying that like the moves that he does that are the mind game, the mix-ups, the I don't know what he's about to do, those themselves change in a way that they either do more damage or they're like I genuinely don't know, because we see in his awakening, we literally see Hiyori coming out mid combo. It doesn't look like he's popping his spiritual pressure technique, which makes me think that she has some type of influence over his combo structure when he's in his awakening, but that conflicts with the information they gave us saying that there are no major changes to its actions. So I'm very, very confused on how he actually works, because in my head, based off of what we're looking at, it looks like his hollowification and his enhanced Sakanade state after landing his spiritual pressure technique 2 do have an effect on his moveset, because we see in his awakening as well that he does have his Sakanade out the entire time. And then when Hiyori is out as well, he has full mobility. Like, he's mid combo, he's doing flash steps. It looks like he might be doing a little bit of a dash too. So does her functionality change as well when he's in his awakening, or is that based off of his Sakanade being out, or is this just something completely different and we just aren't being given all the information? Because I personally thought that he was going to have a unique specification that went over what the enhanced Sakanade state actually is, but we don't have anything on that. So your guess is as good as mine when it comes to that. Definitely let me know what you guys think his enhanced Sakanade state does, because me personally, I think that it makes his moves more effective. It gives you the option to have two different types of moves for his unique skill, and then within his awakening, it also changes the way that his combos work, even though it says that's not what happens, because he already literally just pops out. It's not like he did the pose that we saw in the spiritual pressure technique itself. She literally just pops out mid combo. So maybe it gets rid of the animations for his spiritual pressure I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But what I do know is that his reverse like technique and ability isn't a part of his actual move kit based off of the things that we just saw, which is very disappointing to me. I thought maybe he would reverse controls or reverse the screen for the opponent or something. I don't know, but it looks like it's just relegated to only being a Kikon move. So if you guys have any ideas on that, definitely let me know as well. But I'm going to be 1000% honest with you. This is the first time I've done an advanced breakdown for a character and ended up with more questions than answers. Like, even Aizen, I feel like, was pretty straightforward in the description of how all of his moves worked and everything like that, even though that they work in a way we haven't seen before. But with Shinji, maybe it's cope. Maybe what I'm about to tell you is cope, but it genuinely feels like we don't have all the information, even though we have it in front of us. So maybe there's something that we're still missing. Definitely let me know what you guys think. Keyblade said, I'm both relieved and disappointed. On one hand, I'm happy to see that only Hiyori is part of his moveset, so there's still hope for at least some of the others. On the other hand, it doesn't seem like they really did anything interesting with his Shikai ability, so that's a bummer. But then again, a straight adaptation of his Shikai would be really annoying to fight against. Yes, it would be very, very annoying to fight against, especially in a competitive fighting game with your controls being reversed. But I do wish that there was still some form of implementation, especially with how in the beginning of the trailer, we see the words being reversed. We see them actually use it for his Kikon move. So the fact that I think it genuinely is only relegated to that Kikon move is kind of a letdown. Like, I wish that there was something where, like, say he lands his Keycone move and then for a certain amount of time after that your controls, or you're disoriented or whatever. But people are saying that having your controls be reversed for a long time would be very, very busted. But I think it's more busted if he only reverses your controls for like 5 seconds at a time, because you don't have the time to get used to that. You're literally just a sitting duck for those 5 seconds. Overall, I feel like I wish they did do a better job with, based off of what we're seeing, implementing just his reversibility more into his actual kit. But we don't know. We genuinely don't know, because he has his Shikai in his moveset, and you actually have to manually activate that by using one of his spiritual pressure techniques and having it land. So like I said before, maybe there's just something else we're still missing. Chris said, Kensai is the only other Visored I can see being playable, and Mashiro makes more sense to be a summon attack for him than Hiyori does for Shinji. I agree. I 1000% agree with that. I didn't show you guys this. Actually, let me show you this real quick, because I think that this kind of leads to us not getting more Visoreds as a whole, because when we go to the characters, you see how there's 3 different groups. We have the groups for the like Soul Society characters, I guess you would call it. Then you have the groups for the Soul Society characters, if you want to call it like that, like the Soul Reapers. And then you have your group for the Arancars / Espadas, whatever you want to call them, the Hueco Mundo peeps. So the fact that they just threw Shinji on here with the other non-Soul Reaper people instead of, I mean, Ichigo's a Soul Reaper, Kisuke's an ex-Soul Reaper. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. But the fact that they threw him on here versus adding another category for Visoreds makes me feel like we're not going to be getting another set. And if we do, it'll probably just be one more set of Visoreds. So definitely a little disappointing in that aspect for sure. The homie Ozzy said, the next thing I think, if Shinji isn't an all-in-one Visored character, then that'll be their shared thing. Each Visored gets paired up, which if I had to guess, if we get Kensai, we'll have Mashiro, Love or Rose, we'll get the other, and Lisa and Hachi, which would actually make a lot of sense. 8 Visoreds taking up 4 roster slots. I don't see why not. This comment was on the special trailer video that we got, and you were absolutely spot on with them being paired characters. I'm just thinking now that with the placement of them on the main website's menu, we may just not get pairs of the other Visoreds. Like, they might, maybe as DLC we get them, but I think they might just stop with Shinji, and possibly if we do get another set of Visoreds, it would most likely be Kensai and Mashiro, to be completely honest. So I'm a little upset about that, because I do like the Visoreds. I think that their whole like group is pretty cool, and their power gimmick is cool as well. Like, that was my favorite part of Bleach, is the whole Ichigo being part hollow and being able to hollowify. Like, that shit is cool to me. So yeah, that definitely was a little heartbreaking seeing that on there, because I'm genuinely thinking that means we're not going to get a whole bunch of them, because they don't even have their own section on the website. Like I said, I think Shinji has something going on with him that we will not be able to know until we get hands-on gameplay. So in terms of my interest in him, it has gone back up just a little bit, I was very, very interested when we saw the special trailer, and then when we got his actual moveset, I was like, meh, maybe C tier interest level. But reading this over again, and if he does genuinely have another layer to his onion, then I am saying he's back on that A tier interest level, not S tier. I was really, really interested in the fact that he can jump people, but it doesn't seem like that's going to work in the way that I originally thought it would. But once again, we won't know until we get actual gameplay. We have some more gameplay coming out on Thursday. It's the second half to what we got last week, the, you know, Ichigo's voice actor playing the practice mode and then doing a few fights. We're gonna get a part 2 to that, so definitely going to be reacting and trying to break that down as well, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But other than that, it's been real. It's your boy Lee the Warlord, and I'm out of here. Peace.
Fuck, I'm a gangster. Yeah. Come on.